All right, well, let's talk now about the budget, which is tomorrow night. Well, the headline in The Australian today was "Into the Red and No Way Out" as Labor accepts years of deficits. And the Treasurer has conceded that Australia is in for years and years of deficit to come.
When do you anticipate an Australian government could next deliver a surplus?
Well, it remains to be seen. Our efforts have been about trying to make the budget as responsible as we can, some savings.
And let's bring in now Judo Bank Chief Economist Warren Hogan. Warren, good to see you again. Budgets tomorrow night. We've seen a lot of pre-election sweeteners, but are you worried that this all amounts to increased spending that could put pressure on inflation?
Well, hi, Shari. Yeah, it could very well. We're seeing, of course, this process play out where the budget bottom line gets some support from stronger economy. In this case, it's likely to be stronger personal income taxes. And then some portion of it's spent. And we know the magnitude of the extra spending over the course of this government. So the reality is that we are going to see pre-election spending measures. And I think it's quite disheartening and that we're not even attempting to get back to budget. And that really is the break with the past. The last 30 years, governments in Australia have at least tried, even if it's 10 years out, to have an ambition, and that doesn't seem to be there anymore.
And even we see in the US at the moment, the Trump administration, widely criticised, and yet part of the reason behind Elon Musk's Doge is they are trying to rein in the budget and cut spending. And that attempt isn't even happening here. It doesn't seem like Australian voters care about it anymore. I mean, that's what the polls show. So do you think we are seeing some Labor MPs expressing support for fiscal restraint, but we're not likely to see that, especially when this budget is right before the election?
No, we're not. I don't think any of us are expecting to see any kind of restraint. There might be some restraint defined as not spending all of the increase in government revenues they get, but that all remains to be seen tomorrow, and there will not be anything significant done. The reality is we have every bit as much of a problem with size of government and size of government spending as America, if not worse. And I imagine that the pressure on the next government is to do something about the structural increase in spending that's occurred will mount, because we are taxing this economy, and that is going to force further problems, whether it be labour force participation, productivity, or just unfairness on younger generations. This is not a sustainable situation.
On the other hand, we are seeing the coalition match many of Labor's announcements. Do you think the coalition should be taking a different approach here, a more fiscally conservative approach?
Well, look, I think they are fiscally conservative at heart. The reality is that they just don't want to get in the way of a government that will maybe be kicked out. That's the reality of Australian politics. Bill Shorten showed in 2019 that you put up a lot of policy and you just make it harder for the Australian people to kick out a government they don't like. We saw it all the way back in '93 with John Hewson. So I think they're just being politically conservative and letting the Australian people make a judgment on Albanese and his government. And most people think that's enough. It's what they do if they do get into power that matters. But to give you some idea, if we're just going to give the bracket creep back to the Australian people for the last 3 years, it's $50 billion a year in cutting of spending. And that's just a unpolitically acceptable thing to say before an election.
Yeah, well, Angus Taylor hasn't committed either to delivering a surplus if he becomes Treasurer. I mean, it would be a difficult promise. It would almost certainly be a broken promise if he made it. But he has hinted that there might be a big announcement in his budget reply speech on Thursday. Have you got any insights for us on what he could be looking to do?
Well, I think the two key policy levers they'll look at are either related to energy or defence, and both of these two areas are critical for Australia right now. We know the nuclear policy's there, so is there a sort of a second phase to this around gas? And then the other one will be a commitment to more a significant increase in our defence expenditures because of the precarious global situation. We'll wait and see, but it'll just highlight the point that there are fast becoming big priorities for government spending, and a lot of our increase in spending has been around the domestic scene, which I don't think is sustainable.